So, what is it about wine? I mean, what makes a simple glass of fermented grape juice so fascinating to millions of people around the world? Well, today, we're going to uncork some of those secrets. We're going to decode it all, right here in just about 5 minutes.
I'm sure you've been there. You walk into a wine shop and you're just hit with this wall of bottles. All these different grapes, regions, and descriptions. It can be super intimidating, right? But what if you had a simple decoder ring for all of it? Well, that's exactly what we're going to build for you. By the time we're done here, you're going to have the key concepts you need to walk down that aisle, understand what you're looking at, and pick a bottle with a whole lot more confidence. Okay, let's start with the absolute basics. The most fundamental question of all. What actually turns regular old grape juice into wine?
It seems like a pretty simple question, doesn't it? But the answer is actually this incredible, almost magical biological process. It's the thing that takes something sweet and simple and transforms it into something wonderfully complex. And it's all thanks to a tiny little living thing. And that process is called fermentation. Basically, you have these microscopic yeast cells. Think of them as tiny little sugar-eating machines. They chow down on the natural sugars in the grape juice, and what they produce as a result is alcohol. But this isn't just about making it boozy. This chemical change is what unlocks this huge universe of flavors and aromas that makes wine so interesting. So now that we know how it's made, let's get into what we're actually tasting and feeling when we take a sip. There are really 5 main components, or pillars, that give every single wine its unique structure and personality. First up is acidity. This is that zing, that zest, that freshness. You feel it on the sides of your tongue, and it literally makes your mouth water. Acidity is what keeps a wine feeling lively and refreshing instead of flat or kind of dull. It's also why certain wines pair so incredibly well with food. Next, we have tannin. Now, this one's important. Tannin isn't a flavor, it's a feeling. It's a texture. You get it mostly in red wines because it comes from the grape skins. You know that drying sensation you get on your gums from a really strong cup of black tea? That's tannin. It gives red wine its backbone, its structure, and it's a key part of what allows a wine to age. Sweetness is pretty straightforward. It's all about how much sugar is left over after our little yeast friends have finished their job. If the yeast eats up all the sugar, the wine is called dry. If the winemaker stops them early and some sugar remains, well, the wine will taste sweet. You usually feel that sweetness right on the tip of your tongue. And then, of course, we have alcohol. It's the main event of fermentation. Now, beyond the obvious, alcohol plays a huge role in the wine's body, which is just a fancy word for how heavy or light it feels in your mouth. You can often feel it as a gentle warmth in the back of your throat. Okay, so speaking of alcohol, let's talk about something you've probably seen a million times. You swirl a wine in your glass and you see those little streaks running down the side. People call them legs or tears. So the big question is, do more legs mean it's a better wine? The short answer? Nope, not at all. This is honestly one of the biggest myths in the wine world. Those legs are just physics at work. They tell you that the wine has a higher level of alcohol or maybe some residual sugar, which makes it a little thicker. So think of it as a clue about the wine's structure, but it has absolutely nothing to do with its quality. So here's the real key. A great wine isn't about having a ton of any one of these things. It's about how they all work together in harmony. It's all about balance. A big, bold red wine needs those tannins to balance out the alcohol, just like a light, crisp white wine needs that high acidity to feel refreshing. It's a total balancing act. All right, now that we understand the structure, let's meet the stars of the show, the grapes themselves. Just like actors, different grape varieties are known for playing very different roles. So the first big difference starts with how the wine is made. For red wines, the key is that the juice is fermented with the grape skins. That's where all the color and tannin come from. For white wines, it's the opposite. The grapes are pressed and the juice is separated from the skins before fermentation ever starts. That's why they're lighter and way less tannic. And each of these red grapes has its own signature personality. You know, if you're looking for something big, bold, and powerful, Cabernet Sauvignon is your go-to. If you want something more elegant, delicate, and earthy, that's the classic profile for Pinot Noir. Then you've got Merlot, which is famous for being soft and plummy, and Syrah, which often brings this awesome, spicy, peppery kick. And it's the exact same story for white wines. Chardonnay is a great example. If it's unoaked, it's crisp like a green apple. But if it's aged in oak, it gets that famous, rich, and buttery character.
If you love things that are zesty, grassy, and citrusy, Sauvignon Blanc is your best friend. And for something super aromatic with flavors of peach and lime, you gotta try a Riesling. Okay, let's zoom out for a second, because where a wine comes from has a massive impact on its style. In the wine world, we basically split the globe into two camps, the Old World and the New World. And you can really see the difference here. Old World wines, think France, Italy, Spain, are all about tradition and this concept called terroir. It's a fancy French word, but all it really means is that the wine should taste like the specific place it was grown, the soil, the climate, everything. So they tend to be more earthy and subtle. New World wines from places like the US or Australia are often more about innovation and showing off big, ripe, fruit-forward flavors. So, we've covered the what, the why, and the where. Now we get to the best part, how to actually taste the wine in your glass and understand what's going on. And look, you don't have to be a professional to do this. There's a simple 4-step process. First, just look at it. Check out the color. Second, give it a good swirl and stick your nose in the glass. What do you smell? Third, take a sip and think about those 5 pillars we just talked about. And finally, think about the conclusion. Was it balanced? Did the flavor stick around? And while you're tasting, it's also good to know what to look out for when a wine has gone bad. If your wine smells like a wet dog or a musty, damp basement, that's probably a corked wine. If it smells like vinegar, that's another common fault. Knowing these helps you spot a flawed bottle. And hey, if you're ever at a restaurant and you get one, it is perfectly okay to politely send it back. When it all comes down to it, this is really the bottom line. A high-quality wine isn't about the price tag or some fancy label. It's about 3 things: balance between all its parts, complexity in its flavors, and a finish that makes you want to take another sip. So there you have it. In just a few minutes, we've gone from the magic of fermentation to the 5 pillars of taste. We've met the star grapes, and we've learned how to taste like a pro. The only question left is, now that you've got the decoder ring, what style are you going to explore first? Cheers!